My mother texted me as I stood at the Seattle pier with 2 boarding passes in my hand. "Don't come. Your father wants real family on this cruise. Real family." After I bought them a $966,000 home, paid their bills, and booked every cabin on that ship. I watched my mother smile from the upper deck while my sister-in-law settled into my room. I didn't scream. I didn't chase them. I drove straight to the house they thought was theirs, slid my key into the lock, and froze, because the door didn't open and what I found inside proved the cruise was only bait for me. Before I dive into the story, hit like and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. And if you've ever been shut out by the same people who kept reaching for your wallet, tell me what you would have done, because some nights I still need to know I wasn't crazy. The first time I saw the house, it wasn't finished yet. There was blue painter's tape on the cabinets, sawdust on the stairs, and plastic over the dining room chandelier. My mother walked through it like she was touring a museum built in her honor. She ran one hand along the wall, slow and careful. "This is what a real family home feels like," she said. I remember smiling before I knew why that sentence hurt. My name is Celine Hart. I was 33 when I bought that house, 36 when I sold it, and old enough both times to know better. I work as a personal financial advisor. Numbers have always been easier for me than people. Numbers don't sigh when you ask questions. They don't call you selfish for noticing what doesn't add up. People do. From the outside, the hearts looked warm. On Thanksgiving, my mother Evelyn set the table with cloth napkins and pumpkin-shaped place cards. My father Robert carved turkey slowly, like a man in an old commercial. My brother Grant told stories too loudly, and everyone laughed before he reached the punchline. Paige, his wife, always sat close to my mother, both of them whispering like I had walked into a room where the real conversation had already happened. There was always a chair for me, but somehow, never space. "If I offered to bring dessert," Evelyn said, "just bring yourself." Honey then sent me a grocery list an hour later. If I stayed late to help clean. She praised Paige for knowing how to make a house feel alive. If Grant missed a payment, Robert called it stress. If I questioned anything, Evelyn's eyes softened in that dangerous way. "Celine, why do you always make money feel ugly?" So I learned to make it invisible. I paid for repairs and called them gifts. I covered bills and called it timing. I transferred money and called it peace. Every payment carried the same small hope maybe this one would make me less temporary. Then came the house. $966,000, paid clean, no mortgage, just my signature, my savings. And my mother crying in that half-finished dining room because she said she had waited her whole life for a place where everyone could gather. The deed stayed in my name for simple legal reasons. At least, that was what I told myself. Evelyn liked it that way too. "Keep it simple," she said. "We trust you," and I believed that trust meant love. The day they moved in, my mother handed me a brass key on a ribbon from the junk drawer. "For whenever you want to come home." I kept it in my purse for 3 years. I didn't understand that a key can still belong to a locked door. The cruise was my mother's idea, but she let me think it was mine. It started over Sunday dinner, in that bright dining room I had paid for. Under the chandelier that still had a faint scratch from installation, Evelyn was slicing lemon pie when she said, 40 years is a long time to be married. Your father and I probably won't get many chances to do something special." Robert looked down at his plate. Grant leaned back like he had already been invited. Paige smiled into her glass. I should have noticed that nobody looked surprised. "A cruise?" I asked. Evelyn shrugged softly. "Nothing fancy. Just something with family." Family. That word still worked on me then. Within a week, I had booked the cabins, paid the balance, and arranged the transfers. I told myself it was a gift, a clean one, no resentment, no ledger, no hidden ache, just one beautiful trip where maybe, for once, I would not feel like the woman standing outside the family photo waiting for someone to wave her in. But strange things started happening before we left. Every time I asked about cabin numbers, Evelyn changed the subject. Grant kept asking if I would be around after the trip because he had some paperwork he wanted me to look at. Paige stopped texting me back unless the message was about Lily. Even Robert, who usually thanked me in that quiet, guilty way of his, avoided saying much at all. The morning of the cruise, Seattle smelled like rain and diesel fuel. The sky was low and gray, and gulls screamed over the terminal like they knew something I didn't. I arrived early, wearing a cream coat and sunglasses I did not need, with my suitcase rolling behind me and 2 boarding passes tucked inside my passport holder. I remember feeling nervous, which was ridiculous. I was a grown woman. I had paid for the trip. Still, my hands kept smoothing the front of my coat like I was about to walk into a job interview. Then my phone buzzed. "Mom, don't come. Your father wants this to be real family only. Please don't embarrass us at the terminal." For a second, I thought my eyes had skipped a line. I read it again. Then again, "Real family only." The noise around me kept going. Wheels clattered over tile. A child cried near the vending machines. Someone laughed too loudly behind me, and I stood there with the pass in my hand, suddenly aware of how cold the paper felt against my fingers. I called my father. He answered on the 4th ring. Music and wind rushed behind his voice. "Dad," I said. "Mom just told me not to board." Silence. Then, very softly, "You should talk to your mother." That was when I looked up. Across the boarding area, past the glass, I saw them, Evelyn in a white scarf, Robert beside her, Grant waving Lily forward, Paige laughing as a crew member checked her ticket. My cabin, my paid room, my place. Nobody searched the crowd for me. Nobody hesitated. Nobody looked ashamed. I walked back to my car without crying. Not yet. I drove straight to the house, still wearing my cruise clothes, still holding the brass key my mother had given me. When I reached the front porch, the maple leaves were stuck wet to the steps. I slid the key into the lock. It would not turn, and right there, before I found the bills, before I saw the papers, before I understood the size of the lie, I knew one thing with perfect clarity. This was not an accident. This was the part they had planned for. I stood on that porch for almost a full minute, turning the key again and again, like the lock might change its mind out of pity. It didn't. The house was quiet behind the glass. My mother's porch wreath hung perfectly centered. A little ceramic pumpkin sat beside the door because Evelyn decorated for seasons before the weather even changed. Everything looked warm. Everything looked staged. Then Helen from next door called my name. She was in a rain jacket, holding pruning shears, staring at me the way people stare when they know they have walked into something private. "Celine, honey, did they not tell you about the new locks?" My throat tightened. "No," I said. "They didn't." Helen frowned. "Your mother said it was for security. She left me a spare in case of emergencies. She gave it to me without suspicion. Because in her mind, I was still the daughter, still the woman who had bought the place, still someone who belonged, inside." The house smelled like vanilla candles and lemon cleaner. I went straight upstairs to the guest room, only it wasn't my room anymore. The bed was stripped, the closet was empty. The silver dish on the dresser was gone. In the corner sat 3 donation bags, tied neatly, with my sweaters and old photo albums pressed against the plastic, my grandmother's bracelet, the one I had kept there because Evelyn said family things were safer in a family home, was missing. I didn't cry. Something colder moved into me instead. Downstairs, I opened the kitchen drawer where Evelyn kept mail, coupons, and birthday cards she never mailed on time. Under a stack of grocery flyers were envelopes with my name on them, bills, payment notices, loan letters, all sent to this house, a house I had never lived in. I lined them across the counter by date. Some were recent, some went back years. My hands stopped shaking when I saw the oldest one. That scared me more than the shaking. I called Mara first. "Do not confront them," she said after I told her everything. "Check the deed, check your credit, photograph everything, then get out." So I did what I knew how to do. I stopped being the daughter begging for an explanation and became the woman who reads paper for a living. The deed was in my name only, Celine Hart, sole owner. The house was mine in the only language that matters when people start lying legal language. Then, Daphne pulled my credit history. By midnight, my kitchen table looked like an autopsy. Accounts I had never opened, payments I had never authorized, a rejected loan for around $40,000. More than $200,000 had moved through my name over the years, quiet enough to avoid alarms, careful enough to look normal. And then Daphne found the fresh one, a home equity application against the house. My house. Nearly $1 million of clean property. Attached to it was Lily's name. That was when revenge stopped feeling personal. It became protection. The next 3 days did not feel dramatic. They felt quiet. Mara sat beside me at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and the kind of calm voice people use around live wires. We photographed the bills, the payment notices, the donation bags, and every page Daphne sent over. Then Mara read the deed twice. "It's your house." "Celine," she said, not emotionally, legally. "Naomi, the realtor, moved fast. The house was clean, paid off, and in a neighborhood where buyers watched listings like hawks. We chose a cash offer from a couple relocating from Portland, no financing, quick closing. I signed everything with my real signature, not the shaky version someone had copied on those loan papers. Mine. While my family was still eating buffet dinners on the ocean, I froze my credit, filed the identity theft report, and sat across from Detective Morgan in a room that smelled like burnt coffee. I gave him names, my mother's, my father's, Grant's. The cruise docked 2 mornings later. I parked across the street from the house. I needed to see the ending with my own eyes, because for years I had only heard my family's version of my life. A black rideshare pulled into the driveway just before noon. Grant got out first, sunburned, dragging 2 suitcases and snapping into his phone. Paige followed with Lily, who looked tired from airport candy. Robert stepped out slowly, then Evelyn emerged in a cream travel set. Sunglasses pushed into her hair, carrying the kind of confidence only borrowed comfort can buy. She walked to the front door and put in her key. Nothing. She tried again. The brass key scraped. The lock held. Grant shoved past her. "Give it to me." He twisted once, twice, then slammed his palm against the door. Helen opened her front door. "I thought you knew," she called gently. The house sold. The word hit them like glass breaking. That was when I crossed the street. Evelyn saw me first. Her face tightened, then smoothed over so fast it was almost beautiful. "Celine," she said. "What have you done to our house?" I stopped at the bottom step. "Our house," I asked. Grant turned red. "Don't play games. Open the door." "I can't," I said. "It belongs to someone else now." Paige pulled Lily closer. Robert stared at the driveway like the concrete might save him. Evelyn's voice sharpened. "You sold the roof over your parents' heads." "No," I said. "I sold the house I bought, the house whose deed has only my name on it. The house you changed the locks on after using my money to leave me at the pier." Grant laughed once. "You're insane." I took the folder from my bag. "No, Grant, I'm documented." That changed the air. I laid it out without raising my voice. The cruise payment, the deed, the bills in my name, the accounts I never opened, the $40,000 loan attempt, then the home equity application against the house, with Lily's name attached like a decoration on a trap. Paige went pale. Evelyn looked at Lily, then back at me. "You don't understand what families do for each other," she whispered. "I understand perfectly," I said. "You take from the daughter who keeps hoping, then you call it love." Grant stepped toward me. "You better fix this." Behind him, a police car turned onto the street. He saw it before Evelyn did. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "The fraud report is filed," I said. "The mortgage application is frozen. Detective Morgan has the copies." Evelyn's hands started to tremble, for the first time. My mother looked afraid of the truth. "Celine, please," she said. "We can talk inside." I looked at the locked door. "No," I said. "You can't." Then I took the old brass key from my pocket, placed it on the step, and walked back to my car while the siren gave one soft chirp behind me. Consequences don't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes they come in envelopes. For the next few weeks, my mailbox filled with plain white letters and case updates. The world did not stop spinning because my family finally got caught. People still walked dogs past my window. Coffee still burned if I left it on the counter too long. The grocery store still played soft pop music while I stood in the frozen food aisle trying to remember what normal people bought for dinner. But behind all that ordinary noise, the machine had started moving. Grant was the easiest part for investigators to understand. His name appeared too close to too many papers. His handwriting sat on forms it had no business touching. His excuses changed depending on who was asking. First, he said I had agreed. Then he said Mom handled it. Then he said everybody in the family knew money was shared. That word again. Shared. As if stealing becomes softer when you put it under a family roof. Robert cooperated before I expected him to. Detective Morgan told me he came in with his shoulders curved inward, like a man trying to take up less space in his own life. He admitted he knew papers had been coming to the house. He admitted Evelyn told him not to worry about it. He admitted he looked away because looking straight at it would have required him to choose between his wife and his daughter. So he chose silence. Evelyn did what Evelyn always did. She denied, softened, reframed, cried, and blamed. She told people I was unstable. She said I had always been sensitive about money. She told one cousin I sold the house because I wanted attention. But paperwork is not impressed by tears. The mortgage application stayed frozen. The accounts were disputed one by one. The payments, the bills, the signatures, the dates, the deed, the sale documents. They all lined up in a way no family story could bend. My name slowly came back to me, cleaned off in pieces. I used part of the house money to settle what had to be settled while the fraud reviews ran their course. Not because I owed it, but because I wanted every collector, every lender, every shadow of their choices away from my front door. And Lily. That was the part that still hurt. Paige stopped answering my messages. Grant was not allowed to contact me. Evelyn sent one letter through a relative, written in blue ink, saying I had destroyed the family and would regret it when I was old and alone. I folded it once and put it in a drawer. Not because I believed it, because I wanted proof of the last bill she ever tried to send me. For Lily. I did the only thing I could do without stepping back into the fire. With Mara's help, I created a small trust in her name, locked until she was grown. No parent could touch it. No grandmother could borrow against it. No charming uncle could call it an opportunity. It would wait for her quietly, cleanly, without asking anything in return. Then I moved. Not into a mansion, not into some dramatic new life, just a bright little condo with wide windows, clean walls, and a kitchen small enough that every sound felt honest. The first night. I sat on the floor eating takeout from a cardboard box. Rain tapped against the glass. The refrigerator hummed. My phone stayed silent. No emergency, no request, no mother saying, "Sweetheart, just this once." On the counter beside me was a new key. Not brass, not borrowed, not tied to a house where love had a price. Mine. I picked it up and held it in my palm until the metal grew warm. For the first time in years, a key did not mean I was trying to get back into someone else's home. It meant no one could walk into mine. Here is what I learned after all of it. A family can hand you a key and still keep you outside. They can call you generous while spending you down to the bone. They can say love, tradition, sacrifice, and blood, when what they really mean is access. But love is not access. Love does not require you to bankrupt your peace so other people can stay comfortable. Love does not ask you to ignore the lock changing in your own life. Love does not make you pay for a seat at a table where everyone already decided you were only invited when the bill came. I used to think losing them meant ending up alone. I was wrong. Alone is standing on a pier with boarding passes no one wants you to use. Peace is sitting in your own kitchen, with your own key on the counter, knowing nobody can price you out of your own life again. If you've ever had to protect yourself from people who called it family, share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes the door closing behind you is not rejection. Sometimes it is freedom finally locking into place.